The Newsday continues here on One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. With the elections just 2 days away, here's a guide for voters on May 9. Greg Gregorio has the report.
There are only 2 days left before 65 million Filipinos vote for their bets in the national elections, which will happen in the middle of the pandemic. Unlike previous elections, all voters must undergo temperature checks before they can be allowed to enter polling centers. If their temperature is at 37.5 degrees Celsius or higher, the voter will be put in an isolation polling precinct. And for those with signs and symptoms of COVID-19, COMELEC has prepared a medical assistance desk.
Maliban doon sa tinatawag nating voters assistance desk, iba pa yung medical assistance desk para daw yung may mga nakita na maaari may simptomas ng COVID-19 ay mabigyan din ng karampatang treatment na gusto nila kasi COVID-free ang ating lahat ng mga polling places on election day.
If the voter has no COVID-19 symptoms, they will go directly to the voter's assistance desk, which will usher them to the voting area. Meanwhile, presenting vaccine cards or a negative COVID-19 test result is no longer needed in the polling precinct. IDs are also not required, but it's better to bring one in case of emergencies.
Kahit hindi ka vaccinated or fully vaccinated, you can vote. You don't need to bring any identification ID. Provided kapag may challenge sa'yo, then that's the time hanapan ka ng ID.
Once a voter's name has been verified on the voters list, the ballot, secrecy folder, and marking pen will be given to them. Remember that the ballot is printed back to back. The candidates are on the front while party lists are at the back. To vote for your candidate, just completely shade the circle on the left side of their name. Voters can also undervote, but not overvote. This means that you can vote for only 10 senatorial candidates, but not over 12 candidates. If someone overvotes, their vote on a particular position will not be counted by the machine. Voters should also not worry if their ink will leak onto the next page. COMELEC says this will never happen.
Fake news yan. Kasi kapag tinignan mo yung balota, yung bilog sa likod, hindi naman siya tatama sa bilog din sa kabila.
After shading the ballot, it will be inserted to the VCM and the voter can check whether the machine has counted their vote correctly through the receipt. But voters are not allowed to take the receipts home, nor can they take a picture of it. This is because COMELEC wants to prevent vote buying or selling.
Matagal na natin nagbabawal, di ba? Bawal yung any copy of the ballot. Diba? Dati, nung hindi pa uso ang cellphone, parang ang binabawal dati is to make a duplicate through a carbon copy. Pero ngayon na may cellphone na, eto na yung pinakamabilis na paraan to show that they complied with their agreement with the buyer.
The COMELEC is also urging the public to report incidents of vote buying. The poll body has created an email address and Facebook page for easy reporting, but people can also go directly to their election officer, PNP, and the Legal Assistance Desk of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines for their concerns. For News 5, Greg Gregorio, we are One News.
A political analyst say that social media companies should act faster in taking down fake news. In an interview with the Chiefs, attorney Tony Lavinia called on the developers to implement changes on their platforms. This as Lavinia notes how fake news were weaponized to destroy political opponents during the 2022 elections.
I think we can pressure social media platforms to be more accountable, more responsible, to change their algorithms, because it's really just an algorithm question for them. For them, kasi fake news actually generates revenue because it generates likes, diba? Generates engagement. So we really have to call them on that. And meron naman kaming we have a little bit of success on that.
COMELEC clarifies that RT-PCR test results and wearing of face shields are not required on Election Day. In an interview with Sa Totoo Lang, COMELEC Commissioner George Garcia also said that vaccination is not a requirement for voting. However, voters should still wear face masks and observe health protocols.
Ang pangalan nyo ay rehistrado pa sa listahan ng mga botante, kahit paanong kalagayan nyo, sitwasyon nyo, o nararamdaman nyo, kayo po ay makakaboto sa araw ng Lunes.
We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. President Rodrigo Duterte has suddenly changed his attitude towards presidential candidate Bongbong Marcos. Maricel Halili with a story.
After calling Bongbong Marcos a spoiled brat and a weak leader, President Duterte changed his tune towards the presidential candidate. In an interview with SMNI, Duterte said that Marcos Jr. lives a simple life.
Simple living lang siya. Wala siyang sabihin mo talaga na. Kaya mahirap yung Hindi naman siya mapagkatiwalaan ng bilyon-bilyon, bata pa siya noon. Of course, it's the inherit nila yan, but that would be a very, very tedious process.
Duterte also claims that the government has found no ill-gotten wealth linked to the Marcos family. This despite the Supreme Court ordering the forfeiture of more than $658 million amassed by the Marcoses in offshore accounts in favor of the Philippine government.
Tapos yung pera ni Naco, hanggang ngayon, wala naman silang nakita. Ito, kung maniwala kayo, kung hindi, okay lang. Marcos may konting pera na iwan. Na-sequester lahat Pati yung sa Switzerland.
President Duterte also said that Vice President Leni Robredo will most likely pardon Senator Laila de Lima. This as key witness former Bucor officer in charge Rafael Ragos recanted his testimony against the senator. But for President Duterte, Ragos was paid to take back his testimony.
Itong si Ragos, ganun rin. Pera yan, pera yan.
For News 5, Maricel Halili, We Are One News.
A draft opinion from the United States Supreme Court was leaked, which seeks to overturn the Roe v. Wade landmark ruling that guarantees the right to an abortion. This caused massive protests all over the country. But how will this make an impact on the midterm elections? The details in this Bloomberg Quick Take.
When you talk to people in the Republican Party, when you talk to people who don't agree with you, what is the conversation looking now? How tense is it, and how might it play out into the midterm season?
Well, actually, we're recessed from Washington, D.C., so I haven't really spoken to any of my colleagues. But, everyone is not anti-choice on the other side, but it just seems like they don't speak up about it. But no, it's going to be a battle. But also that's why it's so important that people vote in every election. It can't just be that you vote in the presidential election. You have to vote in the midterm too, because that's what has allowed some of this to happen, some people to get elected that are not pro-choice. So we, the public, have to take responsibility too and vote in every election. But I expect, many of them to be cheering, but as you see, Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins are not cheering. It seems like they were, if I could say, bamboozled into voting for some of those justices.
And those are the top stories of the hour. Join us later again at 12 noon as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on Signal Play app. Register for a free account now, www.signalplay.com, and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Riza Diaz. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.